Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back.
Welcome
Episode
back.
number 10, double digits.
Double digits.
We made it,
We absolutely made it.
I think there's a stat that I told you about that I read that most podcasts don't make it to episode 7. So
Correct.
we're doing well.
We're doing pretty good.
Yeah, new upgrades.
New upgrades, huh?
I don't even know if you could see it on the center camera, but
It's okay.
It's okay. It's there
Lights off. A little podcast after dark.
in the middle of the day. But here we
you
are.
Can't tell them it's in the middle of the day. It looks like it's at night.
I think they'll find out in my background of my camera.
Listen, what do they know?
Anyway, a lot going on in the world nowadays.
Yeah, you had some things you wanted to talk about.
Yeah. Do we want to jump in immediately to the?
Well, first off,
the
how was the
darkness?
weekend?
It was good. Normal weekend for me. Training, doing my thing. Nothing out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
How was your weekend?
Weekend was good. I'm starting to get a little, not necessarily bored, but it's a little monotonous going to the same places on the same weekends. There's kind of a routine that you do when you're in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
You go to, about 4 to 5 different places if you're in the certain mix of where a lot of people are going. So you're trying to switch things up as best as you can, but even if you go to the spot that you're not used to going to, you may be either disappointed or you're going to be pleasantly surprised. So we haven't been pleasantly surprised lately, so I'm going to go back to my roots and hit toward the city this next weekend. But so far it was good. There's there's playoff baseball going on right now, so
There is.
I'm pretty glued to that as much as I can, and there's some upsets going on. So
Philly's one of the greatest places for playoff baseball.
yes, it is.
It's
Yes,
it's
it
a
is.
different atmosphere. But actually, before we get into any of that,
Sure.
you brought up going out and being out in the city and being out in places, and it was one of my questions I was going to bring up if it happened, because I just saw a clip of it. I think Bradley Martin was talking about it,
Yeah.
and I have a question.
Okay.
In today's world, with everybody going out and doing these things, because I don't know how deep in your relationship you are. I don't know how long you've been together. Shout out to her. Can you say her name? Because I am going to botch it if I say it.
I cannot say it on here.
That's fine.
But
Okay.
I will tell you, yes.
Okay, yeah. I don't want to say her name and then botch it, but shout out to her. She's one of our biggest fans.
She is. She's a high-level supporter.
So the question is, would you let her go out on her own without you there? That's one of the main.
Yes, it just depends where.
That's been controversial in today's world. Is do you let your girl go out to places without you being
Well, I
there?
want to be clear. As an adult, I don't let her do certain things. I think she gets to choose those types of activities. She gets to choose anything she wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, there's suggestions on where to be and where not to be based off of safety. I think I'm always going to drill that down to any woman that's a part of my life in any capacity, right? Whether it's friends who I have or my significant other, cousins, my own, even my own mom. You got to let them. You got to make sure you know where they're located, depending on where you're located and where they're at. So in Philadelphia specifically, it's a great city, but it has its ups and downs, and it has its issues. So you're gonna have to navigate it the right way. And I think that my girl has a good idea of proximity and positioning when it comes to where the problems lie. And there's been conversations about making sure that she's in better spots than she's been. And
Yeah.
it's all about improving on that, right? So. But I do think that women, I don't let anyone do anything.
Right.
They choose, but I suggest where it's the right thing. And if you make the wrong decision, then you have to live with those decisions, depending on your relationship.
Yeah,
I'm not in that place in my relationship, and I've been there for a while, but I'm not in that place yet where I could say, this is what you're doing, as opposed to you should probably do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was just interested to hear what you had to say about that, because there's been a lot of different opinions I've seen on the internet with what people choose to do and what the general public thinks about it. And
Sure.
there's been some hot topics and there's been some
Hot in what way?
controversial
Give me an
opinions.
example.
Do you know Sneeko?
I don't.
He's like an influencer that's very Andrew Tate-esque.
Okay.
And it's very extreme to what his opinions are. And his opinion is he doesn't want his girl to go out without him. Any like in the scene of going out to like bars and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't think I'm upset about that. I think that's not a. I don't think it's a bad opinion.
No, I don't think it's a bad opinion. It's just the way he says things is
Sure.
it's just brutal. Like it puts off a lot of people.
Yeah.
So that's where the heat comes in for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, he doesn't want his girl going out to those bars at all. Like he doesn't want her going out at all if he's not there.
Let me make sure I'm on Do Not Disturb here too.
But yeah, so he's very polarizing in what he says. It's how he got his fame, if you want to call it that. And that's his way of being a public figure. But he's very
Has he been doing that? Has this guy Sneeko been doing this for a long time?
not that I'm aware of. He kind of just popped up on the scene in my eyes, at least
Okay.
on my social medias recently, as in like a year or less ago.
Mm-hmm.
So no, not very long.
Do you think that stuff, these types of people or figures, are going to start to become oversaturated in the way that that's all the types of content you're going to hear from a certain group?
It's hard to say. It seems like that's the lane where people are gaining their publicity and becoming famous. So it's almost like that's the gateway to get where you want to be, as in the regard of being famous.
So they're just going to lean into it.
So
naturally.
people might lean into it and then drift off into their own lane.
Yeah.
And if that works out for them, it works out for them.
Yeah, because I guess I wonder what. I think it's funny when people even hear Andrew Tate talk. I think that when you listen to, I think the only interviews you're getting of him are interviews of the stuff that he's only said, as opposed to more about him. Like I think I'm kind of sick and tired of listening to the interviews about him with, his dad was a chess master, his mother led the home, and they didn't have any money, and this is why he thinks the way he thinks. Like I just kind of want something a little bit more interesting, like. And that's just with a lot of interviews, too. It doesn't necessarily – there's so many interviews you can get online. It's kind of the space we're in.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I don't want to get into so much of the story all the time. Like I want to kind of learn where they're at with certain things going on currently.
Yeah.
And not always the story of, how'd you grow up? Where'd you come from? Why are you the way you are? Like, I think we're kind of, those are getting predictable.
Yeah.
And they're still entertaining in some ways because it depends on who's doing the interview. But
Right.
And some people do better interviews than others, which is just natural. But there's so many of the same interview, man. Like, I can't keep watching certain things where it's like, okay, I'm going to get the same interview. That's why I loved when he did the interview with the psychologist.
I that came across my social media after you
Really
said
watch
that.
it.
I didn't
Really
watch
good.
it, though, but I should.
Yeah, you should get into that because it's really, really good. And there's just a lot of they talked at things at a different angle. Same thing with Pomp, the guy who's like he's a economics guy, looks at the stocks, looks at a lot of trading, and he has his own podcast too about just certain parts of life too. And so when Andrew kind of gets into his very bombastic and intense way of speaking to people, where it sounds like when he gets louder, he's saying something better.
Yeah.
But what he's saying, he could just say at a normal level. But that's who his character has become. He asked him a lot of things of like, so what do we do now then? Like, that all sounds good, but then what do we do?
Now what?
Or what's the solution?
Yeah.
How do we fix this? And that kind of got into that's a great question. Like, I haven't broached that topic yet with anybody because no one's asked me how we make it better. They're always just wondering, like, how do I get to the points I'm always at, and why am I saying it so aggressively?
Yeah.
So, yeah, guys like Sneeko, like I'm gonna watch some of his content just since you brought it up because I hope that they're kind of getting into like new topics.
Yeah. I don't know. It's almost like you fall back into what you know, and if what they know is the same topics that they talk about to get the millions of views,
Yeah.
then they're probably going to lean back into it.
Like, I just don't want predictability, which is, even Joe Budden talked about it a lot, which was really fascinating to me. He was talking about certain interviews with certain high-profile celebrities that he just doesn't want them. He'd rather just have a conversation with his friends because it's easier to talk about them than talk to them.
Right.
And look at all these different things. He's like, if I do a Drake interview or I do a Rihanna interview, she has that interview. She's cutting that up. She's editing it. And if she doesn't want to put it out, she won't put it out.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I want to put my stuff out. So why talk to other people who get to decide what happens? So like the higher profile they get, they're going to come in there and edit. If you got an hour and 45-minute podcast with that person, it might be down to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
After it's done, you'll be like, well, that was not even a fun interview. Nobody saw the real one.
That was a waste of time.
Yeah. And so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
But go ahead. I know you got some things you wanted to talk about.
You brought up Joe Budden, so I'll stick on that. You see, first, how did you feel about Drake's album? There's a lot of talk about it, and before we get to the Joe Budden beef, how about the album?
I'd say it's his best album since Scorpion. I feel like Drake has so many really, really, really good albums. I think some would say some classics. I think Nothing Was the Same and Take Care were two classics back to back. With that being said, I don't think he's gotten to that point. But I also feel like it's really difficult for artists to make you feel that same way every single time. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that's what I'm looking for too. Like way it made me feel like when people say they want the old Drake or the old Kanye or the old Wayne. Like I just want that old feeling that I got from the anticipation of the album being made. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Like when I remember in 2013 when the build up to Drake's album in the summer. And like after Take Care, I remember when Take Care came out, and that was in it's my freshman year, and I think it could have been my freshman fall.
13, right?
Yeah, no, 11.
Oh,
2011 that came out.
That.
I was a freshman in high school, and I remember when it came out. And that was when New Music Fridays didn't exist. So music was just coming out when it came out. Like it was either a Thursday, it was a Friday, it was a Monday, it was whatever the album date was.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they had metrics and analytics to learn when that was going on too. But I'll never forget when Pandora existed, and in the light in which Pandora was. Like Pandora was Spotify before Spotify, and we listened to it in. I forget our teacher's name, but she was our computer teacher. And we were in computer class. It was me. Shout out to EP. Shout out to Alicia. Yep. Yeah, it was like five of us in a row, in your computer class. And you're sitting there. I'll never forget it because like that was the feeling I was supposed to get. We knew Thank Me Later was good, but we knew where Drake was, that was just an unbelievable album for us at the time, where music was. And then Take Care comes out. And we're in computer class and it drops. And that was the feeling we got at the moment, was like, yo, Drake's the biggest thing for us right now. How I would say like how Uzi makes people feel. Like the younger kids, how Uzi makes them feel. How Travis makes the younger kids feel when he drops. That feeling is so anticipated.
Yeah.
But they don't have it the same way because music's dropping at the same time all the time. Mm-hmm. So I just wish it made me feel that way again.
Right.
When Meek dropped the second Dream Chasers, that was at 2:00, and it crashed Dat Piff, and we were in school. We were getting ready to go to the bus, and everybody had it before 2:00 at like 1:58, and he crashed the Dat Piff website. And so you couldn't download it right away. And so you had to go home, you had to wait, you had to get onto the bus. Everybody's saying, yo, did you hear Dream Chasers 2? Did you hear Dream Chasers 2? It was crazy. Like that feeling was like a euphoric thing. Like everybody who was around you felt the same way.
Yeah.
And so now the Drake drop, fast forward to today, the album, I was excited for Drake music, but the music itself didn't give me the same feel that I wanted. Right? Like, and it was still great. Like there's probably like 6 or 7 songs at least that I go back to in certain settings, right? Like I heard a couple things out this past weekend that I was like, okay, this is good. Like this works in this area. And then there's some that I was, you wake up, you get on the drive in the morning and you hear that was good too. And you hear it during, when I'm in the facility, I'm doing lessons. I put things on for the kids that they like. And so there's songs on here that I'm going to always listen to in certain areas, but as a body of work, I thought that it was better than Scorpion, but like it was as good as it was the best album he's had since that time, but in between those albums, there's been good moments. There's been really good moments, but it wasn't a full body of work that was like, I can take this entire thing, play it, no skips.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of where he's at in music right now, I think. I think it's a different album. I think it's a different time.
Right.
You know? Different time of music. It's a young sound, and but I totally understand people who say that he didn't put his best foot forward in his musical ability. I think that there was some songs that he could have potentially taken off, and that's fine. Like he's also not. I don't think he needs to be responsible for how the bar in music every single time when he was on top. He's been on top for about a decade and a half.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to just like maintain that level of dominance. Like, so the fact that he even maintained it for this long, he can have an album that's just above average, not excellent or extraordinary. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, almost in every field you have a prime in whatever you do, and I think we might have saw Drake's prime unless he comes back in the next few years with something. But I think
people who are one of one have that ability to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's different in like, it's not like sports where it's like you age in dog years, right? Where that prime for George St. Pierre was his between the ages of like 27 to like 36. And then he still won fights after those that were good, but there's chinks in the armor. It's not as simple, right? Like it's a lot more challenging to win after that prime, but you can still do it.
Yeah. It's interesting. I didn't even listen to the full album. I listened to bits and pieces of songs because Drake's just not my guy. He's not. I'd go towards Lil Wayne more than I go towards Drake if we're talking about those types of people. And Lil Wayne's last mixtape, I probably listened to like 4 or 5 times through.
Okay.
He's my guy, so I stick with him. I'll go listen to Drake's album all the way through and then give my opinion maybe, but it sounds like it was an above average album.
There's some really good music on there, and it's never gonna not be high quality, but because he doesn't. I think he's one of those people who's like inept at making bad music. Like he's not good at making bad music. Like there's some people who just naturally don't have the ability to make high level music, and their best is somebody's like average. Yeah. But he's so excellent at making sounds and pushing it in a way where it's always going to be the next thing, which is why I think people were upset, because he kind of fell into a sound and a melodic thing that the new age of rappers and artists are doing now, which I can appreciate him being able to dive back and forth and create that versatility. But like, if Drake decided that he wanted to get on boom bap beats, if he decided he wanted to make rock music right now, that would be the thing. That would be what everybody does. Yeah. And somebody would, and it would start to gravitate toward other people. Like Uzi trying to make rock music didn't resonate with the masses, but if Drake tried, I'm not saying it would be great. I'm not saying that I would even enjoy it, but it would move the sound. Like he would say, okay, we're doing this now. Yeah. Right? And he had the ability to start doing that, and I think that maybe he does. I think he did that with the dance album, with Honestly Nevermind, which I love that project. I didn't like it in the beginning. I like it now. I like it a lot now. And that's kind of where he is. He's kind of a mad genius with that, where he can figure out that you're not going to necessarily love this right now, but you're going to love it later. So I think that there's people who are going to love this album later.
Age like fine wine.
Yeah. You're going to hopefully. I mean, he's got a lot of projects that have aged really, really well, and there's some projects that in today's era of how much music comes out, it hasn't really aged to the way that you go back and listen to the full project again. Like, there's times where if I get on like a 3 to 5 hour trek somewhere, like I'll listen to a full album. Yeah. But most of the time I'm putting things into a playlist, or I'm listening to 3 or 4 songs. I personally like to listen to albums from front to back to pick the songs that I like, to then put it into more songs that I like. Yeah. So
last album I think aged like fine wine was Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. I remember when it came out, because I was heavy on Kendrick at the time, and it was general public was not a fan of the album. Like across the board, it seemed like nobody liked it. And then like a month or two went by and everybody loved it.
Yeah.
But that's one of my favorites recently that I've been listening to and have been listening to. But yeah, the great artists can make music age like fine wine.
They do. No, they do, and they're very good at it, and they create a way that makes it so much replay value. I think you get when you listen to certain artists, and it's great that he has that replay value. That it's like and that's the it in music.
Mm-hmm.
Like some people make great music. There's a lot of people who make really good music, but the amount of replay value that you get is tough, and especially depending on in Drake, you can play in so many different moods and feelings and different timing,
Yeah.
right? The timing of his music. Play it in the car, play it in the shower, play it with your girl, play it with your friends, play it at a club. Like, it is all very versatile, and it's not easy to be able to make that type of music, which is why he's like the Michael Jackson of what we have now.
Yeah.
And, yeah, he's special, but, you know, I think I would have wanted more in certain areas. But I think I'm pretty satisfied with what I got. And if you tell me that Drake didn't make any more music, like, I'm good. Like, I'd be good with the amount of songs that I have now. And he's going to keep making music, and I think he's going to keep pushing the bar. I think he's a guy who's pretty aware of what people are saying and how the culture moves. So, like, I think he's probably heard this stuff, and he's probably going to say, like, all right, I'm gonna lay low for a couple of years, and then when I come back, I'm going to drop a
banger.
bomb. I'm going to drop a bomb on you.
Yeah. I'm excited for that. I'll see what he comes back with, if he comes back with anything. But speaking of replay value, we have a rematch on our hands. UFC 294.
We have a rematch.
UFC 294 has just been flipped on its head. Our main event is switched. Our co-main event is on the table for whoever wants to step up. Islam Makhachev is going back up against Alexander Volkanovski in the rematch in Islam's backyard this time. I couldn't be happier about the matchup. Everybody's a Charles fan nowadays. You want to see Charles Oliveira in the octagon, but if you can't get him, then let's get that rematch with two of the greatest on the planet right now.
Yeah, I think the rematch is going to be fascinating because of the lack of timing, right? Like, we talked about this even coming up in here, was Volk has to have been training at even just like a baseline level. Like, he might not have been training for the fight, but he's training in general. And who else do you think would have gotten the fight if it wasn't him?
Well,
because I feel like they're forcing this fight, which I'm fine with, but there's somebody else who probably could have gotten the fight in the division.
Yeah.
Really interested to see who do you think it could have been? Who are like the two guys outside of Charles who could have gotten this fight, and you would have been like equally as excited?
Equally as excited, I don't know, but one person that definitely could have and should have got the fight maybe is Matthias Gamrot. He just went up against Fiziev a few weeks ago, and that stopped in the second because of an injury.
Now, what's he ranked?
He's got to be top 5.
Okay.
Definitely top 10. He's got to be pushing top 5 at this point. He's been around for a while. He's been winning. He lost to Beneil Dariush. That was his only loss in recent memory. He's definitely, I don't know if he's lost that outside of that, but he's got the wrestling. He's a wrestler too, so the wrestling exchanges in that fight with Islam would be money. I'd love to see that.
Okay. I like Gamrot.
Outside of Gamrot, it's hard to pick. You got Gaethje, who just knocked out Dustin.
Like, I think that's
a draw. That's a big draw. Like, people want to see him.
Yeah, I think he's just as entertaining as Volk. I don't think he's better than him, but I think he's as entertaining. And I don't know if they want Islam to be the champ if you give him Volk.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough because
I think Volk's personality and his charisma ooze through the screen. So, like, it's easier to be able to say, you know what, like, if Charles won this, we would have been excited, but like and that would have been fine. Like, that would have been fine with the UFC, because that's kind of, and that's, you know, it's funny, we talk, you're learning more about business and how this stuff works. And that to me is like that's a business move.
Yeah.
Like, this is a business move right here more than just like a fill-in move, because fill-ins are typically not the guy who's like the hardest guy to beat in any division. Like, it's not going to, like, they shouldn't have given him, okay, yeah, I'll just take Volkanovski. That's fine. They could have totally said, like, we're going to give you Justin Gaethje.
Yeah.
And like, that's just as good, it's just as difficult of a matchup, but a one that Islam can handle if they're trying to keep him champ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, Volkanovski, like you said, the charisma is through the roof. He's a marketable guy.
Dude, you can see that a mile away.
Yeah, it's very obvious that Volkanovski was going to be a superstar and became a superstar. He is one. Even losing to Islam, his stock went up. So
Yep.
that plays into probably why they gave him this rematch. There's a lot of questions going into it, like you said, with the timing. Volk just had surgery in July, I think. So what are we, 3 months out of that?
What do you have surgery on?
It was either his elbow or his hand. It was one of those, but you have to think he's a super athlete. He's gonna come back from that pretty quickly and get back into training.
He's gonna be fine.
So the question, that's a question still. Like, what does that injury look like? What does his cardio look like training after coming off surgery?
Clearly, he's fine.
Yeah,
clearly, he's healthy enough to be able to in a week or two, take a title fight.
Yeah.
In the guy's backyard on a huge card. Like, that's what I'm saying, where I feel like this, from a business perspective, like they were fine with Charles not being able to do it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think anybody's upset about that. And it's funny when Dana does it too. Like, Dana has this I think Dana White is objectively one of the smartest guys out, one of the smartest CEOs and presidents of a company.
Yeah.
Like, the UFC is a Fortune 500 company at this point, but he's very fascinating in the way that he does business, because I think he's far more calculated than people will maybe give him credit for timing, environment, how he kind of controls it in a way. And I think that I would be, like, from a conspiracy brain, like, I could totally see that he probably saw this maybe even 2 months out. Like, just from a conspiracy perspective, like, he could have been like, you know what? Like, something's going to happen to Charles. And, like, if something happens to him in training, like, it's 100% going to be Volk. And we're going to be fine with it.
Yeah, it's possible. Conspiracy theories, can go on all day. I don't know that was the case. I think it just, what happened, and Volk is there to step up, so they gave it to him.
'Cause I saw the video when he was upset about somebody leaking that Charles got hurt, and now they put in Volkanovski.
Well, from my understanding, Charles got hurt like yesterday or the day before.
Exactly, what doesn't make any sense.
Why doesn't
So,
that?
like, for me, yeah, it got leaked out within the last, like, couple days, but, like, that information was going to come out regardless. So, like, if someone learned about Volkanovski doing it, like, I just think that it wouldn't. Why did it make him so upset that now Volkanovski got leaked out to the public?
I don't know. You're kind of throwing me in a blender right now, because
Sure.
I'm a little confused. Because from my understanding, Charles got cut in training.
Mm-hmm.
They went to the drawing board. They said, who should we put in? You're circling Justin Gaethje and you're circling Volkanovski. Who's available? Volk was number one.
And that's what I'm saying. I don't think that any other names were even discussed. I think that it was totally Volkanovski, and I think that I feel like it's more calculated than maybe we think. And that's where I'm saying, like, especially with these guys who are running billion-dollar corporations, like, and that's where I would say, like, from a conspiracy side, like, I personally don't believe that. I believe that they think that maybe Charles wasn't ready for the fight prior to this. Like, just take the gash away.
Yeah.
Like, that's the type of things that happen. Like, when I think about behind the scenes stuff, that, like, people are far more calculated than the public. So they say, I feel like they could have said 2 weeks ago, like, hey, Charles ain't looking good in sparring right now. And, like, yes, the gash happened, but, like, they're okay with the gash out. Because like most people who things like that happen, they're gonna try and figure out a way. Like it's gonna get closer to the fight before they say like he can't do it.
Yeah.
Right. Like especially even like weigh-ins, like things like that. They're very and things. These are freak accidents. Some of these things are freak accidents for sure. I feel like there's a little bit more to it.
There could be, and I don't know if I'm on the same line of thought as you are. I just think it was
because you're in the fighter mentality of
Yeah.
like you've been in it where like something happens that can't let you train,
Yeah.
and like it takes you out of situations that are out of your control to a degree,
Yeah.
right? But like when you see it from a business side, because you're not in a situation where like billions of dollars are on the line,
Yeah.
and so they have to create entertainment that like. Is going to be maybe more. It's going to bring more pay-per-views because, like, if Justin Gaethje's against Islam, I don't know how big the pay-per-views get.
It's going to be big. Regardless.
It should be.
It will be.
Well, it should be, but I don't know if it's not bigger than Vulcan Islam.
No,
it's not.
no.
So I don't even know if that's even discussed because they're like, well, weird. They already fought. They should have fought later, right? But if Volkanovski's ready now, we're not even going to let Charles maybe heal. We're just going to be like, you know what? Just put him in.
Well, looking at the cut that he had, good luck healing that before fight night.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, he was probably out regardless. But there's a lot of conspiracies that I didn't really think about that you brought up.
Oh, dude, start looking for some of these things too, because when you get in the behind the scenes of like some of these professional leagues and just the way that things work with, because one of the things I think people don't see prior is all of the things that it takes to get to the thing you're looking to get to, right? Like as a fan, you turn on your pay-per-view or you get your stream. Don't stream things illegally as much as some people do in general. Start buying the fight, buy the pay-per-view, support them, support the fighters, please. That being said, when you get to a pay-per-view and you go home, you're riding home, you do that thing, and you buy your pay-per-view, you turn it on, and then the fight's about to start. The things that happen prior to the fight between everybody to get onto that stage and get into the octagon is insane.
It's unbelievable.
It's ridiculous for that to happen. Fans don't even realize it. People don't even realize it who are even like close to the process. Like for that fight, but like by the time the fighter even gets to where the venue is located, the amount of things that have to go right in between that time. And then you think about the stuff 4 weeks before where they're cutting and all that stuff. Like they got to make sure, I'm sure the UFC has to make sure they're on time for that stuff. They got to make sure that the cut's happening the way it needs to be happening.
Yeah.
There's the USADA, there's the commission. Like, dude, the amount of things that happen in between, like, you almost got to get lucky for these guys to fight.
Honestly, yeah.
Right?
A fight week is probably one of the most unenjoyable times for a fighter with media, especially on a pay-per-view with media, with weight cuts, with all that, everything going on. Mm-hmm. It's
the fluid in the brain. It's a lot of stuff going on.
You're dehydrated. You're already unhappy because of the weight cut. And then you just got to talk to people all day, every day. I can only imagine.
Because the UFC pay-per-view is like a Super Bowl every single weekend.
Yeah, it's
right?
grand. They make it grand, and they make sure it's perfect. So they're going to do what they got to do.
Yeah.
And the fighters got to do what they got to do.
And that's why I think that there's room for conspiracy, right? Like, only because of that type of stuff. Like, if there wasn't so much gray area that's happening like 4 to 6 hours before the fight, even, 4 to 6 days before the fight, like, you just don't see it. And so every time that things are happening, like, for that move to be made, it's so calculated, man. It's so much calculated down to like the dollar, down to the ass in the seat, right? Like, and they got to make sure that you're excited to keep watching. You're a fan. You're actually a fanatic of the sport. So you would have watched if they put Michael Chandler in there.
Yeah, it wouldn't have mattered.
It wouldn't have mattered. But for the guy who's just learning about this and they heard about Volkanovski and they heard about Charles, like, oh, dude, if they put Volkanovski in here, like, that's going to make me buy the pay-per-view more. So, it gets a little bit more intense.
It's exciting. I can't wait for the rematch. It'll be fun regardless. They're both going to show up.
For sure.
And then the co-main is I don't know what's going to happen there. I'm happy with whatever. I heard rumors that Kamaru Usman might be stepping up to fight Hamzat. That's a banger.
That's nuts.
That would be wild.
He was just in Fashion Week not too long ago either, so I hope he's ready. He looked pretty good in Fashion Week.
These guys at the top will be ready for anything.
Yeah.
So I'm not really worried about it.
He needs a win, too.
He needs a win.
Yeah.
He does need a win.
When's the last time you could have said that? This might be the first time in like 6 or 7 years that you could have said like Kamaru Usman needs a win.
Yeah, he's about to go on a losing streak.
He is on one.
He's on a 2-fight losing streak. He needs a win here. And if he goes against Hamzat, beats Hamzat at a weight class above him, that would be crazy. A crazy derailment.
I think it's there.
It's there, 100%.
But I think he goes right down because he doesn't want to fight Izzy.
No, he's not going to fight Izzy. No, especially he might fight Strickland.
He's smaller than Strickland though.
Yeah,
So, like height wise.
but you know what's crazy? He already beat Strickland when Strickland was at 170.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he has a win over Strickland. So if he's like, if he gives the bird to Strickland and goes and avenges Izzy's loss, he could do that.
But then after that, does he fight Izzy?
He vacates and gives it back to Izzy.
Yeah, I don't think they want to fight each other unless there's hundreds of millions of dollars on the line.
Realistically, Izzy's not already said he's not going to be around for much longer. He
Yeah.
said this probably last year that he's got 3 or 4 more years left. So who knows what he's going to do? And then Kamaru will probably either go back down or fight somebody else.
Okay.
But it's interesting.
It is interesting.
All right, let's get into this. It's been on my mind. It's been on my chest. The world is somewhat crumbling.
Okay.
We talk sports. Now we're getting pretty dark because it's a dark time. Israel and Gaza are currently at war with each other in the Middle East.
Now, I'm going to need you to give me a rundown, short rundown, but brief rundown, but I need an understanding of what's going on because I'm not well versed in it at all.
I'll give you what I know. Obviously, I don't know everything.
Okay.
I'll give everybody a rundown because it's a war. I feel like we should all be aware of what's going on. So Israel is the bigger country. We're allies with Israel, the United States. We're allies. Israel, inside of Israel is a little spot called Gaza.
Okay.
Gaza is separate from Israel. They're Palestine people. I don't know.
Palestinian.
Palestinian.
Yep.
I don't know the correct terminology, and I apologize in advance. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings, but I'm just saying what I know, and if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. But so Palestinian people live inside of Gaza.
Okay.
Israel is for the Jewish, from my understanding, majority-wise. There's always been tensions in the Middle East with that part, with Iran and Gaza and Palestine and Israel. Those people have always been at pretty tense relationships with each other. They've never been best friends. And from my understanding, Gaza invaded Israel either last week or it was a planned attack with Iran, who is notoriously a terrorist organization, terrorist country who is on the side of Gaza and those people who do not like the United States by any stretch. And because of that, do not like Israel because we are allies. So Gaza plans an attack with Iran to invade Israel in order to take Israel. That's their plan, take Israel. The Hamas is the terrorist organization in Gaza who did this whole thing, planned this whole thing. They're like the ISIS of Gaza, if you want to call it that,
Okay.
the terrorist organization. So they are invading Israel, looking for. If I'm being honest, I don't know the baseline cause. So why is this all going down? So they invaded, right? Israel's coming back now on the retaliation side. The United States is sending our ships over there and kind of flexing our muscles, if you want to call it,
Right.
to show that we're with Israel and we're allies with Israel. So that's where we're at right now. There's, Israel sending in a lot of rockets on Gaza. Gaza's sending rockets back. Women and children are dying. It's a war. It's a straight up war.
Yeah.
And it's terrible. It's pretty surreal in my head because this might be the first time in my life outside of 9/11 that life has become I'm human, right? Especially with our border and everybody coming in. So hold on, back up. So that was my baseline kind of explanation, not the greatest explanation. there's a war going on. Two people don't like each other, and that's kind of what's going on.
Yes.
But where it gets frisky is because all these civilians of different countries are now dying in that area that they're there. Americans have died. The British people have died. A lot of people outside of just that area are dying, which is kind of snowballing into a world war, so to speak.
Okay.
So that's where my fear is World War III. But what I also fear is the border that we have in the United States has been, as I don't know if you've seen the news, but our border is open. It's wide open for people to come in. And we've had, I think, 200,000 people, it might even be more than that, come into our country illegally. And we don't know who these people are. And the Hamas has notoriously sent people into the United States to form these terrorist groups in order to attack the United States. So what's going on? We're at war. Well, we're not technically at war, but I think we're on our way. And it's not good for anybody. And it just hurts because a war is a war, right? We had Vietnam. We had World War II, World War I. We had all of these wars. The problem is we didn't have nukes. Nukes are a thing in the world, unfortunately. And when you have all these emotional leaders with nukes on our hands, one wrong decision and it's it. That's what I fear. I fear that if nukes come into play, it's over. Like there's no option because one person sets it off. It's just who's next. And right. Nukes, I don't think people truly understand the capabilities of the nuke and how powerful it is. With the amount that are at play and at stake here, you can pretty much wipe out the earth, which is my fear. So I'm vouching for peace. I mean, who am I to vouch for peace? But we're at war, and I think everybody should at least do their research. What do you mean?
What do you mean? Who are you to vouch for peace?
Like, I'm not a Joe Rogan with millions of followers who I can stand up and make an announcement. Like, what are we doing? Obviously, I'm 20 years old. We have, I think, 50 subscribers. But okay. I'm going to do my part to, let's think about this. Let's take a step back and let's be peaceful. Let's figure something out because the way it's trending, it's not a good ending for anybody. And I don't think people really come to terms with that. So that's what frustrates me. That's what scares me. But I'm doing.
Well, first, I think let's pray for the people in Israel.
Absolutely.
And everybody who's involved. What's going on there clearly is not only surreal, but it's ruining lives all over the world at this point for the Israeli, Palestinian, and the Jewish community as well. So we want to extend as much grace and extend as many prayers as possible to those people. Any Jewish people that you want to have your hand on them right now if you can. Clearly, it's a brutal situation and it's a surreal thing for them because those people might have family in those areas who are directly affected. So we want to send as much gratitude and hope and care to them as much as possible. And if there's any organizations that are sending things, you could send it to APunchersChance@gmail.com if you guys have any information you want to send to us about sending things over or helping people, donating. Those are things that we definitely want to do. That being said, I want to talk about some of the things you said about what's going on. Yeah, I think it is scary. It is a scary thing, and you hope that the people that are running these countries, specifically ours, Israel, Palestine, and Gaza in the particular areas are going. Hopefully, they end up understanding that it's bigger than their fight. It's for a lot of other people, and I don't necessarily know if I'm going to touch on the illegal nature of how people are getting into this country, but to know that they're here, we hope that at least we extend to them the same prayer and grace to be in this country the way that they need to be, and if they're doing it for good and doing the things that they need to do to help their families, because yes, it's not the right thing in most views, I would say, in a lot of people's thought process, but at least by the process, right? But people are here to start a better life, so you hope that they're doing that, in hopes to change the world in a better way.
And I'm for that. To make that clear, I'm for you searching for a better life and doing what you have to do for a better life. What I'm not for is Iran and Gaza and these people that don't like us developing strategies with the Hamas, the terrorist organization, and sending their people into the United States and
Right.
starting to plant their seeds here. That's what I'm not. That's what I was trying to point towards. That's where my head went. If you're just a natural civilian trying to make a better life, maybe.
What do you think the timeline is on some of this?
I've been thinking about that, and I actually have no idea. I was thinking about like how long the Korean War and how long Vietnam lasted. I don't know, because every day I'm seeing something new, and it seems like Gaza's already in the talks for a peace treaty. So that'd be good. Let's figure something out. But realistically, I don't think it lasts. I don't think this specific situation lasts long. I think if something else is going to happen, then it's going to branch out into somewhere else, like Iran or the United States, or something else happens where it's not just this war, where it transitions to something else.
When's the last time we've been, in your thoughts, this vulnerable?
This is the most vulnerable I've ever felt.
Got it. Yeah, and that's just timing, right? Like, I think for your age and the people between 18 to 22, they haven't seen some of what's going on. I mean, I think if you're in the 22 to 24 to 29-year-old range, you've seen some things and you've been a part of some of the war in Afghanistan and the Bin Laden situation as well. And those things got resolved the way they got resolved, which gave us some relief. And now there's new problems that, as the power of this world, we have to get involved in. And we don't have to, but we feel obligated to. Mm-hmm. And I think as an ally, it's a good thing that we are involved to help and do our part. But it does affect the rest of the world, and it affects our world specifically in a way that we hope that it doesn't become a trickle down, right? And so I don't know what the solutions are, but if there is a world war that is pending, you hope that there's not a draft. You hope that there's not things that, potentially pull other people in the age groups along the way, because that's my fear. That's
getting
my
drafted.
Fear, is getting drafted and having to go protect something that I don't know if is always protecting me. Protect something that maybe I don't understand the cause,
mm-hmm.
And protecting something that maybe my life isn't prepared to protect. Right? Like, I got a life that I enjoy, which is why I love being an American, and I'm trying to continue to build that life. But yeah, those things are real. Those things are real. Those things happen, and I can only imagine being in that scenario, being drafted at a point in the the 70s and the 80s, and even in earlier than that. So somebody here, one of us probably knows somebody who got drafted.
Yeah.
At some point in their lives, and it's a crazy thing, man. So prayers to the Israeli community, prayers to the Palestinian community, the Jewish community as well, and we hope that they find solace in this. They find some relief, and there's some grace extended to them along the way. So,
yeah, I mean, not that I want to talk about this, because I really don't. It scares me, but some things I feel like I'm obligated, especially if I have a platform like this, that you have to talk about it. You have to
use it the right way.
You have to bring light to what's going on, because I feel like it's only right that everybody understands what's happening in the world, because even though it's thousands of miles away from us, it does affect us, and
it does.
It could potentially affect us more in the future. What do we know? But I'm just hoping something happens where we find peace and everybody's all right.
Yeah, no, that's the hope.
But Yeah. I now it's convenient that we're looking at the TV right now because it's showing us news about it. But, yeah, I don't know if I don't think I have much left on it
Okay.
because it just wanted to bring it up, spread light to what's going on.
Well, as more develops, let's on our next podcast. Let's have a conversation.
Maybe we get somebody that knows what they're talking about in this situation. And
Yes, I'd like to learn a little bit more to really see. Okay, well, what is happening? How can we help? And what are what's the next steps?
yeah, I don't really want to end this on a bad note like this. Like,
What do you got? Give me some.
I don't know if
hitters.
I have anything.
Give me some quick hitters because I gotta get out of here soon.
How much time we got?
What time is it right? I got your phone on. Oh, you're gonna get your phone on? Probably
It's 2:05.
2:05.
I'm looking at it.
Got it. I got about 10, 15 minutes.
All right. I mean, I got, the only other thing is I've been reading. I
Okay.
think I said this, right?
I think you just started. Yeah, you were talking.
Yeah,
you
I've
just
been
started
reading. I read something the other day. Rick Rubin throws gems. I actually think I did say the same thing. Rick Rubin throws gems on one of the podcasts, but I read something the other day. He said, make your life a book of poems, not a novel. And enjoy the moments. I feel like the moments is what life's all about instead of trying to make this a perfect picture of a sequential life.
Yeah.
I'm trying to take that to heart and really try and endure the good moments I have to make the stories better.
Yeah,
and
man, you
have
want to be
stories.
present. You want to be present in a lot of the things you're doing, especially if in life where even some of the stuff that feels challenging, like the stuff that feels challenging, the stuff that feels harder to maintain, even though you would love to be in a better situation than what you're potentially in, and you still have to manage it. So finding the good in it is better than finding the bad. So
Yeah. There was another one, and I forgot it off the top of my head. So, but that one stuck with me. Life, I've gotten better at just kind of being in the moment in life and enjoying what I got going on.
Mm-hmm.
I've had my failures recently, and I'd take a step back after I did something either wrongly or I failed at something, and I'd be like, well, it happened. I can only either let it affect me or I can move forward with it.
Right.
So I've noticed I've gotten better at moving forward past the failures that I make in either whatever it may be. And so that's something I'm happy about. And hopefully if anybody's watching that's, like in their head about something they failed about, life goes on and keep moving forward.
That's it. That's the truth. Yeah, man. I mean, failure is going to happen, and you can't be afraid of it. Like, I was just talking about this with my mom. Like, there are people who are afraid of failure because of what they think that's going to do to the person or the people or the thing that they're doing, right? So, like, I know people who are afraid to fail because it's going to hurt the person that they're working for. And it's like, man, I'm fine with you failing. Failing's good. In a lot of ways. Like, in most ways, it's good.
Yeah.
Right? Especially if you're young. Now, you don't want to fail where it's detrimental to the way you exist. Like, if failing is going to decide whether you eat that day or not, or you have a home, or you can, continue to wake up every day with at least some purpose, sure. But, like, if you've got the things working for you, not against you, failing is fine because, like, you're always going to be able to pick yourself back up. But people struggle with that,
Yeah, and I mean, I did for the longest time, and I still do to an extent, but I'm definitely progressing in that nature of just kind of accepting the failure that I make and using it to move forward and
Right.
not make that mistake again or not do that thing again. But yeah, so that's my quote of the week, I guess. From
I like that.
from Rick Rubin,
Listen, take that with you guys.
the man himself.
I like it.
But that's all the topics that I had in my mind. If you got anything,
I'm good, man. I like that. I like what we talked about today. I think I want to definitely be able to spread change and spread some positivity if we can on here.
Yeah. Trying to be everything, right? I'm trying to cover everything. I don't want to shed. I don't want to stray away from any topic. So even if it's difficult to talk about,
Like, view, subscribe on A Puncher's Chance on all platforms. Also, send us some topics in the email and or comments.
yeah.
Tell us you like our topics. Tell us you hate our topics.
Hate on us.
Tell us you want more, you want better. Tell us you want worse. We'll do it all right?
Yeah. And if anybody can explain what's going on in the war better than I can, please do.
Please get in the comments and tell us what's going on. I have no idea what's going on until I heard about today. So do not kill me for not understanding what's going on. But kill me if you want to. It's fine.
Okay. That's been episode 10. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.